Good evening and welcome to 40 Days Ministries Bible Study number 206. We're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 6, that section from verse 25 to 34. The study of Jesus' message of the Sermon on the Mount, that part that says, "Don't be anxious." As you can see on screen, I'm bringing it up, that little section here, 25 to 34. This is our 80th session in the Matthew series. It's Tuesday, August 26th. And before we go to the lilies and the close, I just want to mention that John Gill gave additional insight on the previous part of this paragraph, where he said that worry over food was part of the mindset that people maintain to preserve and prolong life. People worry over food, and certain foods will preserve my life, certain foods will prolong my life. Jesus spoke about worry for food and living long together. He did that on purpose. Nothing is by coincidence. All right, so what we did last week, where we spoke about birds of the air, they sow nor reap, and he mentioned what we'll eat or drink, life more than food. And by being anxious, we can't add a single hour to our lifespan. Jesus didn't talk about that together as a matter of coincidence, because some people do really worry. And this was John Gill talking about it whenever he existed, which was before 1900, as far as I could tell. I can't remember his time. But John Gill was around a long time ago, before now, where we have all these crazy people, vegans, vegetarians, the keto people, these people with very strict diets, because they live longer on that diet. You know, they believe those things. Whatever you believe for your diet, go strong. But is not life more than food? Jesus was saying. We're going to read from verse 28. And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? We're going to look at this section, 28, 29, 30. That section in our scripture. All right, this next verse, 28 here, is hitting us with more noticeable stress for the King James Version people that like to feel confused at the words and then take a victory lap in their heads because they've translated the verse in their heads. All right, I want us to see it in the King James. Let's go back a few verses, 30, 29, and 28. And why take ye thought for raiment? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. Why take ye thought for raiment? And like I said, some people who like to feel confused by the Bible like to read the King James because it feels good. The day you do something for God because it feels good, you're not serving God, because Jesus said, deny yourselves, take up your cross daily. Okay? It's not about feelings. It's about obedience and submission to God's will. Yes, serving God really does feel good. But that's not why we do it, because the Spirit's conviction does not make us feel good about some things. And those people who claim to do things for the feelings, a lot of the things they feel are ungodly. Okay? It is good to be able to read and translate the King James Version in your head so that you'll understand it. When I say translate, I transliterate so that you'll understand it. But if doing that slows your true understanding of the word more than just reading words, it becomes an ego-based activity, and such a person is depriving himself from the fullness and depth of the word. Check out here the King James, which we just did. Check out the NIV and the NLT. So let's look at the first two. And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. And why worry about your clothing? Look at the lilies of the field and how they grow. They don't work or make their clothing. Each of the modern ones has its merits. So let's remember that different translations can help us understand a verse more before we go to the original word studies and before we go to the commentaries. Check out different translations of a verse. In fact, here's a standard pattern. I give 6 steps of a standard pattern for Bible study. Simple. Read the Bible verse in English. Try to get a strong grasp of the text in your head. But keep in mind, this is the preliminary step. It must be a flexible understanding, ready to change as we go through the later steps. So you read it in English, different translations if possible, to get a fuller understanding in your head of what you're going to study. Check surrounding verses in the chapter to ensure that you understand the context of what the Bible is saying in that section. Consider this verse in the chapter context within the context of the Bible's message of God's love for an undeserving race. Then check the commentaries and use their references for understanding, and check the original language words in the interlinear Bible, and check the lexicons to determine if there are special meanings for certain words used in that verse. Compile it all and summarize. I'm not putting this here just because that's what I do for Bible studies, but it is very effective. Okay? And of course, if you want help in learning how to do those things or practicing it, sorry, we can always volunteer for that too. I can do that with you. Pulpit proposes that Luke's account of this is the more original account. As just to let you know, Luke talks about this as well. All right. Now he mentions lilies and how the lilies look so good. We go from an animal comparison with the birds to a plant comparison. Do we see how hard Jesus is trying to tell us to ignore worry? He showed that bird-brained creatures don't work to feed themselves and they're well fed. He didn't talk about their looks, their singing, but that was implied, right? Remember, he said, consider with the mind. If you remember last session, the word used when he said, look at the birds, this look was not just a literal look. It was not a literal look. It was look with your mind. Now he goes from food, feeding the birds, to what we wear, comparing the appearance of the lilies to what we wear. As Jesus goes on here, he's talking again about clothes. As he does this, the modern person will miss a cultural context of this reference. Some of you might remember it. We think of clothes today as representations of who we are. Even people who are not considered trendy or fashionable, they will choose clothes that broadcast who they are to others. You know, whether you are young or old or tall or short, dark or light, whatever, you usually choose clothes. These clothes are me. I like these clothes. Even people who's like, I just wear what I have. How did you get it? How did you choose that? Somebody buy it for me. They probably thought that looked like you, whatever you are. So we choose clothes or we wear clothes that represent who we are. There are some people who be like, I really don't care what I wear. Fine, but you still wear something. And what we wear represents us to what people to the people around us, and it helps form their opinions of us. Basically, to us, clothes are a visual introduction of a person that other people can see, other people can read, but to the Jewish audience at that time, clothes were used to pay debts. Clothes were used as collateral for debts. They would understand clothes to be debt instruments. So clothes were of the greatest value to them. Jesus is saying here, don't even worry about money. That's enough. We could stop right there. That's how deep his instruction is. We're going, of course, deeper than that. We're going to examine it properly and consider. I'm going to look at this word here, consider. In the original language, the Greek root is katamanthano. I can bring that to you. All right. Observe, katamathete, and the original. Let me bring up the original for you here. Watch it here. Katamanthano. Right? You can see the pronunciations down here in case you can't read the Greek. Katamanthano. This word, the lexicon tells us it means to learn thoroughly or examine clearly. All right, you'll see consider and observe. But down here, learn thoroughly, carefully, note carefully, consider. Sorry. There is a description down later on that says to learn down to a point which intensifies. Jesus didn't tell them just to look casually or to ponder in their minds. He was telling them, analyze the flowers. That, of course, means we're going to look at the word for lilies, because if he said, as you see it in the verse, in the text, if he said, examine, deeply examine the lilies, let's see what's so special about the lilies. That's where I'm going next. Okay, so the word for lilies here is Krina. The I has an accent. So this is krina. Krina is the word for lilies. The root for it is krinon. I'm going to show you that. Bringing up krinon for you here. Krinon means lily, right? Just like I have it. Kri. V is an N. This was one of the first things I had to learn when trying to do this. Without even trying to learn Greek, I was like, what does that mean? V is N. So krinon. Okay. Krinon is talking about God, about the lilies. While we will take the use of the word lilies to show divine providence, common P, divine providence of God for his creation, he takes care of us. Meyer informs us that the word refers to varieties of plants that occur in the wild. The lilies were not planted by men, so their beauty cannot be attributed to the efforts of any person other than God himself. Other writers like Ellicott group various flowers together and say that they would fall under the label of lilies. Cambridge quoted a guy named Dr. Thompson, who said, this incomparable flower in all of its loveliness, around the northern base of Tabor and on the hills of Nazareth, where our Lord spent his youth. Sorry, Dr. Thompson was describing the lilies. And that was a specific flower he saw that was found in the land of Israel that Jesus would likely have meant. Pulpit shared different views, but said that this flower was not cultivated, but it was, and I quote from Pulpit, it was the most universally spread of all the floral treasures of the Holy Land. The anemone coronaria, that's the name of the flower that they're talking about. The anemone coronaria is called the kalanit in Israel. Sorry, I don't know why I'm coughing this afternoon. Where it is the national flower. The kalanit is the national flower of Israel. Many people agree that this is the flower Jesus was referring specifically to in the scripture. Barnes said that God has such little regard for beauty and ornament that he gave it to things that perish quickly, and that hit me hard. We know God created beautiful things, but what Barnes said here makes sense. The things that are most beautiful are fragile and they don't have a long life. No flower lasts extra long. Flowers bloom and they die. Yet we chase after beauty hard. God knows that he can make that beauty with just a thought. So to him, it's not special. The outward appearance is not that special to God. Sorry. And that is something serious to consider. We are very focused on preserving our beauty, that it consumes our incomes, our time, and our thoughts. Expositor says that this provides insight, this section provides insight into Jesus' intense delight. That's the exact words, Jesus' intense delight in nature. And they suggested a holiday mood of the setting. JFB reminds us that God's favorite creation would not be left naked. He made basic things like flowers to be beautiful. So why would he leave us lacking? John Gill said that if God makes the things that outdo our greatest efforts, and they don't try to outdo us, God would definitely clothe his loved ones as well. Think about that. There is some serious word study that we're doing in this verse. I'm going to look here at grow oxanosin. We're going to look at this. I'll bring that up for you. The Greek root for grow, oxano, you can see it here, oxano. That Greek word, sorry, is intransitive, meaning there's no direct object. Let me make sure you understand a basic English thing. Transitive verbs have an object. So if I tell you, shoot him, that's a transitive verb. Shoot, a direct object. Shoot him. Shoot, just if I just watch you say, shoot, that's an intransitive verb because I didn't give you a direct object to shoot at. Bengal suggests that the height that the plants grow to, unassisted, is part of what Jesus was talking about. They grow without your help. Meyer and expositors Greek Testament say it's used to refer to lilies, but not just a group of lilies, but they grow as individuals. They are individual flowers. They don't try to provide for themselves. Just like humans, not that we don't provide for ourselves. What is similar to us is we grow individually. Nobody around me, by their growing, helps me grow physically. But we all grow as individuals among a group like the lilies. Now, while they both said that, I didn't see anything like that in the lexicon, so I'm wondering where they came up with it. I didn't see any references for it. I'm going now to the word toil. Everybody knows what toil means, right? They do not labor, nor do they spin, right? In our translation, I'm giving you it here, they neither toil nor spin. So the word for toil is here, kopiosin. Kopiosin. This word for toil, its root is kopi. This is kopiao. I can read it here, kopiao, kopiao. And they tell you how to pronounce it here in case you can't read it. Kopiao. I said ko, it's kop. Kopiao. Kopiao. What a funny pronunciation. Toil and spin here were used because Jesus was making connections between the hard work of survival and the weaving and spinning, in that working to survive is connected to weaving and spinning to make clothes. The Greek root, as we saw it, means bodily and wearisome effort. See this? In this verse in particular, bodily and wearisome effort. Not just, I'm working, I'm going to work. Kopiao is when you have arduous tasks to perform. In a way, Jesus is identifying prophetically that he knew we would work ourselves into the ground to get by. Back in those days, people were doing it too. But Jesus knew how much worse it'll get for us. Because think of it, y'all, we live in a time when there are so many labor-saving devices. Sorry, if you need to dig a shovel, if you need to dig a hole, you buy a shovel. You go to a store and buy a shovel. You don't have to make a shovel. We have labor-saving devices. You don't need a shovel to dig a big hole. Just call a backhoe. Call one of those auger machines. You understand? You need to hammer stuff, just get a nail gun and just fire nails. But we work many more hours than they worked back then. Yes, we have more comfortable homes, more comfortable couches, but our people are dying despite medical care and health care and medicines and machines and diagnostic equipment and knowledge. It's kind of cyclical, isn't it? You think today about the people that are out there who work endless hours or multiple jobs just to meet basic needs with no real luxuries. I'm not talking about a guy working 3 jobs so that he can have 10 cars, 4 houses, and land all over the place. I'm not talking about somebody like that. I'm talking about somebody who's barely scraping by and he has to work 2 or 3 jobs just to scrape by. There are people like that today. Now, with that in mind, I'd like to drop one point here about the fact that these people are kept in that position partly by their own stubbornness and by the systems of the ones in power over us. Don't let life pass you by without trying to build yourselves up. So where you are now, you should be better off next year. Well, better off, I don't mean necessarily with money, better off in terms of your employability, your skill level, or your skill variety. You should be better off next year at this time, having developed something new or learned what you can do even better, or broadened your horizons, or invested in some piece of equipment that you're getting familiar with. Sorry, but that is something that we must all consider. Jesus is not saying here, don't work hard. But he is saying, don't worry about the results of our work and how we're going to make it through life. I'll admit that these thoughts too have occurred to me, but I must exercise faith to discipline myself to focus on God and his will. We must never let worry control any of us. Nor must we stay in that mindset where we only focus on how am I going to get by? When I hit 70, will I be able to afford this or afford that? All temptations take us to places we should not go when we spend more time on them. And the time spent on worry. Don't pay attention to worries. Jesus is instructing us to do things right. Worry torments us and there's no beneficial payoff. You see, you could go and learn a skill, take a class or learn a skill or whatever. That is torment, but it leaves us with a beneficial payoff because at the end of the classes, I have a new skill, a new qualification. But worry doesn't give you a new skill, a new qualification. It leaves you in worse health. Benson refers to other people's speculations that even Solomon wore white robes, and the lily reference was not randomly chosen. In studying this, I saw pulpits say that some guy called Professor Drummond did homily and not exegesis. Homily refers to the practice where biblical text is related to the lives of the congregation, while exegesis is the examination of the Bible to understand its correct meaning. Homily is not our old enemy, eisegesis, but it may come close to eisegesis if a person gets carried away. Good homiletics is based on exegesis. Eisegesis is just plain wrong. And that's what happens when people aim to do homily, but they lose themselves in making their presentations relatable. Be careful. You can do homily. Of course, you have to do exegesis, but don't let your homily end up into eisegesis. Those are just terms for studying and using the Bible to create and produce sermons. They brought up Solomon's wardrobe. Jesus brought up Solomon's wardrobe too. And most of the cross references are about Solomon and his wardrobe. If I try to get you to 630, 628, right? Oh, no, 629 for the Solomon's wardrobe. I apologize. You see here, Matthew 29, Solomon, 2 Chronicles talks about Solomon's life and his stuff, Solomon's stuff there. First Kings, Queen of Sheba came to Solomon. So a lot of these things talk about Solomon and his stuff. Because Jesus brought up the comparison, right? Now, Ellicott said that there are Jewish traditions which speak of even Solomon's attendants wearing purple. Now, we may not value the descriptions of colorful clothes because colorful clothes is such a commonplace thing today. But in those times, colorful clothes were rare and expensive. Regular people would not have colorful clothes. And remember, clothes was money. I need to borrow money from you. I need to take goods on credit from you. I leave my cloak. I leave my goods of value, my robe or whatever. Remember when we studied Joel or Amos? I think it was Joel, where the abusive upper class were abusing the clothes poor people left in pledge for their debts. Contextual understanding. Maya emphasizes the point that this here refers to Solomon's glory, not just his royal robes. Yet, I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory, right? We might see that and not pick up. This is not just Solomon's royal robes. If people were thinking this was talking about everyday Solomon, they were wrong. This is talking about special occasion Solomon, his glory. The comparison Jesus made here was to one lily, as you can see, was not arrayed like one of these. He was speaking about a single flower being more beautiful than whatever Solomon had. It wasn't even saying, well, a hillside of them was beautiful. The individual flower, let me hit a light here. The individual flower is more beautiful than the most wealthy and majestic of Israel's kings. Bengal shared that kings customarily sought to wear white clothes, and by comparison, Lilies whooped the king's wardrobes. No king had something that could compare to Lilies. If you were talking white on white, the whiteness of the lily was better than the whiteness of the robes that they could ever find. JFB said, and I quote this here, "What incomparable teaching, best left in its own transparent clearness and rich simplicity." JFB said that about verse 29 because the message is clear and literal. You look at it. I tell you, even Solomon in his glory was not arrayed like one of these. JFB didn't even try to explain it. They just left it like that. O ye of little faith. Believe it or not, this is one Greek word, and I'll show it to you. If I can get to the button. 29, 30. Is it 30? Yes. If we read the transliteration, the furnace being thrown, God thus close, will he not much more you, O you of little faith? Question mark. I know reading the Greek transliteration is sometimes difficult, but look at this. O ye of little faith. It's one word. This is oligopistoi. Oligopistoi. It's oligopistoi. We're going to look at the original word root as well. Oligopistos. Now, this means this is a vocative adjective. I hope I'm pronouncing vocative right. Let me show you some. Oh no, I just closed the page I wanted. I want to open back that page. This one. If you look at it, adjective, vocative, masculine, plural. That matters. Vocative here means it's directly addressing and describing certain people, in this case, people, or it could be for things too. The root oligopistos oligopistos is a word that's only used by Jesus in the New Testament that we see. It was always used to show up the low level of belief in action by the disciples. It appears in Matthew 8:26, 14:31, and 16:8. We're not going there. We see Jesus using the same term to describe them in those reference points. Sorry. Expositors and JFB said it was not used reproachfully. This was new to me. It was an encouragement from Jesus. The question mark in the text seems to support this view. When you look at it here, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? Question mark. Now, the whole thing is a question, but when you tone it down, it might seem like an encouraging view. They were basically saying, expositors and JFB were basically saying, this may not have been a declaration made by Jesus in frustration. I always took it to be like that. Luke's version, though, brings it across as a more stern way. So maybe, this is me speculating here, because the two versions tell us that one seems to be more encouraging, one seems to be more rebuking. Maybe there was a rebuke, but not one made in frustration. I'm just so fed up of you all being so low in faith. It was a kind and encouraging rebuke. You're not doing it right. Do it better. So when he said, O ye of little faith, it was an encouraging rebuke where you're not doing this right. Come on, guys. In a nice way. We also see here in this verse that will he not much more clothe you? We see much more again, right? And I will ask, do you remember the reason for using much more value? That's what the other translations would say. ESV left out the much here, but it was here in 26 and it's here again. Much more. Do you remember why he used much? It was not redundant. It was not him being careless. Okay, we're going to close off soon. We're looking here at grass being thrown into the oven. That reference. Gill brings good perspective as he talks about the grass being clothed like the flowers by God and God alone. And after being clothed by God, they're only going to be put to use when they're burnt. Now, being thrown into the oven as grass, you'd see it down here. If God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, it's going in the oven to be burnt. All right? There is some cultural context here that we have to understand, historical context for their time. Most of my internet references talk about dried and salted animal dung being used in people's homes for oven fuel. But to start and add to the fires it was burning, kindling was used. Wood was scarce, so wood as a fuel was not often used. Kindling, which would be grass, hay, dried leaves, dried branches, if you could get those, right? So dried grass was easy. Anybody could get that. But dried branches was so hard to find even. So the dried grass would use as kindling to start the fire and to help keep it going. That was the fuel. That was the best option for the average person. All right. The kindling here is the grass that Jesus was talking about. All the people would have recognized the daily reference Jesus made to grass being thrown in the oven. And they would have understood it to indicate the shortness of this life and the end of this life, too. Those people knew about Gehenna. Sorry, they knew about Sheol, right? And when we think of Sheol, we remember the reference to the plain of Gehenna, where they had the Israeli people in their bad days, sorry, in their worst days, they had burnt children as sacrifices to Moloch. They eventually made Gehenna a dump site for garbage. Do you remember that? I hope that you remember it. We first met it in Bible study number 152, and that wasteland image is what they thought of. Unfortunately, though, the Jews believed in Sheol as a neutral, dark underworld kind of place. They didn't have the hellfire image of hell and eternity in hell that we would have had. Bengal says that even the use of lilies and the grass, it reveals that Jesus was showing the beauty and necessity of life. Lilies, beauty; grass, necessity. Beauty and necessities are fleeting because the whole of a person's life is short. We live, we meet our necessities while pursuing beauty because we're always trying to buy something nice. Once you have extra money, I'm saving up to buy nicer clothes, a nicer car, a nicer phone. I eat food, but I want nicer food. When we have extra money, we'll try to buy nicer stuff. At the end of it, though, we can look back at all the days and we can say they went by like that very quickly. The terms that we see on the screen here, alive today and thrown tomorrow. Alive today and thrown tomorrow. Those terms hit. Jesus refers to the throwing into the fire in other places, and we can see that it's a clear reference to the default destination of all humans without the saving grace of God. Friends, I'm stopping right there. We just looked at verses 28, 29, and 30. I left it in such a way that you can still draw your own conclusions in terms of you can elaborate on what I've done. I took us over by 10 minutes. Next week, God willing, we'll try to finish 31, 32, 33, maybe 34, I don't know, if God allows. To all who are here live, thank you very much for sharing your time with us. Thank you very much for making the time to be here. To those of you who are watching on Facebook and on YouTube, I do thank you as well. I hope, God willing, I have to fly this Friday, that I'll return safely to Trinidad and we'll do Bible study. What would that be? This was Bible study 206. I hope, God willing, to be here for Bible study 207 and to do our 81st in the Matthew series as we continue to study Matthew chapter 6 right now. God bless you and keep you. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Goodbye.